housing innovation company, been around for a little over 30 years. Um, a lot of our work is in residential new construction, although we also are involved in existing homes and retrofits. We got involved in the DOE's Connected Communities program through a partnership with another company, Tierra Resource Consultants, that does a lot of work with utilities around the country. Now, we don't have really any background in the utility industry, but we kind of saw in our own way writing on the wall. Connected communities, as I'll talk about in a minute, is really about how buildings and the equipment and devices located in buildings connect with and interact with the electric utility grid to better manage grid reliability, demand, supply, really to help balance out the load so that utilities can find more cost-effective ways to provide needed power to customers and end users, and then share as we'll see through programs that Duke Energy, who's our partner on this project, already has and is developing, to share a lot of the savings and benefits with those customers, so that everybody can find a reason to participate in this kind of an approach. So I'm going to go through just briefly like background on our project. And one of our key partners and one of our first partners after we started planning this was Meritage Homes, and Brett is here with me to talk a little bit about kind of their experience in the project so far. But I'll give a little background on the project, kind of what we're doing in the heat pump water heater space, and then, including kind of what we're trying to learn from that work. And then I'll show just a brief slide on some of the data we've been collecting. Admittedly, we're just kind of getting started with that. We're still in kind of recruitment of customers, build out of homes, and retrofits. So we're really early in the data piece of this, like really early, but do have some preliminary stuff that I can share. And Brett, you can jump in anytime. So I don't want to just start rolling ahead, but I want to respect the time that we have. So I talked about the Connected Communities program. This is the DOE definition of it. As I said, it's really about how buildings and devices called distributed energy resources can connect with the utility and the grid to manage, better manage the kind of energy and power issues, but also bring benefits back to the customers and the buildings. In our case, with our project, we're focused exclusively on residential buildings in North Carolina. We're working with utility Duke Energy. They're one of the largest utilities, if not the largest in the country, in terms of customers and territory. We're looking in the project to recruit 1,000 homes and customers into the project, 500 new homes, of which Meritage is one of the two builders providing those homes, and then 500 existing single-family rental properties. We kind of shifted to where we're focusing exclusively on rental properties, and we will have some manufactured homes in the project as well. We're being funded almost $7 million from DOE, and then providing cost share through incentives and other cost share provided by Duke Energy primarily. This is a kind of a list of all of our partners on the project. You can see Meritage Homes. We're also working with Mattamy Homes. American Homes for Rent and Invitation Homes are two, build to rent, single family rental property management companies that are providing the existing homes. And then you can see a lot of our other OEMs and research partners on the project as well. Why this matters essentially to DOE is, they really see that these, and you hear it more and more, but managing load is becoming increasingly an important element of the, energy supply chain. And rather than just investing all of those resources in capital improvements and grid infrastructure and power plants, there are more cost-effective ways that you can manage the supply side of things and the demand side by looking at these kind of grid interactive efficient buildings. And so you can see DOE projects that there can be up to $18 billion per year in power system costs, and cut a lot of carbon emissions from the environment, which is the other key element of this, is how you can facilitate greater adoption of cleaner and renewable energy systems to the electric grid. So that's another goal of the Connected Communities program overall. Also, if you think about from the utility angle, there's a lot of elements in terms of how the grid used to be and how utilities managed that, and what customers were like kind of historically versus what's happening now, and what's happening in the future. Probably one of the biggest ones that we all experience is the reliability of the electric grid is declining. So there's more blackouts, brownouts, forced blackouts, things that are happening that are impacting services to customers, and those really need to get addressed. The grid is aging, so it's not as reliable as it used to be. But also things like greater electrification, the new regulations around managing these kind of distributed energy resources, more extreme weather events. Now there's not just sort of one-way direct power flows from utilities to customers, but there's two-way power flows back to the grid. So a lot of things are happening that utilities have to address. And so they need to come up with new ways to do that, new customer programs, greater customer engagement, new rate designs, cleaner energy resources to the grid, so that they can not just, kind of cover the traditional ways of how customers use energy, but some of the dynamic and future changes that are happening. And so we're looking at these new models with Duke Energy and our partners on this project. And I'll highlight really the last one here around new business models. That's really key, because if we're bringing builders like Meritage Homes into this a project like this, a study where we're wanting to look at how the utility can benefit from other ways of investing in improvements to the electric grid, and they want to bring builders in. Well, what's in it for the builder, right? If this is just a utility problem, why should a builder care about putting different equipment in their home to help the utility manage the grid? So what comes back to the builder? And then when you look at that, really what happens every day, a customer buys a new home or rents a property, all of a sudden they become the customer of that builder or a customer of that property manager to a customer of the utility. So what can happen in that handoff to get customers to participate in these new utility programs? Yeah, Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think Ari makes a really good point here that I just want to emphasize is, Meritage has been building energy efficient, Energy Star rated homes for over a decade now. We've built over 100,000 Energy Star certified homes. And a lot of that work has been on the consumer facing side. And that's what a lot of our discussion thus far today has been about, is really about the consumer facing aspects of a particular efficiency technology. But the one of the challenges with the adoption tends to be on the cost side of adoption. And so one of the reasons for Meritage to participate, one, we're concerned in the future about the customer experience in those kind of grid instability kind of environments that Ari highlighted, right? So we want to make sure our consumers are in a really good spot and connected to a reliable grid infrastructure. But at the same time, for these types of projects, are there ways that we can participate in a way that helps offset some of the costs? We don't always have to ask our consumers to bear the cost of updating to new technology when there's other value that's being created in the chain. And so I think there's an opportunity here to make sure that gets recognized in a way that the cost can be offset and hopefully accelerate adoption. So it's not just put on the consumers for everything.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of square what we want to start to kind of explore through this study. And we can talk more about kind of the program side of this, maybe in another, or, sidebar, or anybody can reach out to me or Brett and talk about this. I want to jump into the water heating piece of it. And I'll start by just saying in our project with Duke Energy, or probably the key area that we're focused on is addressing what they have as a growing winter peak issue. You know, North Carolina traditionally has been a summer peaking territory for utility, where a lot of the air conditioning use and the hot, humid summers cause those peak loads that you typically see in the later part of the day when everybody has their air conditioners running. Well, with growing population, greater use of electric heat pumps with resistance backup elements, electric water heating. North Carolina is a big market for electric water heating. What we're seeing in Duke's territory there is growing winter peak in the early morning as people are, getting up, taking hot showers in the winter, running their heater with the backup elements kicking in. That's a whole other discussion on HVAC side of things. And then again, later in the evening, you see a second peak. That growing peak is not traditionally what Duke Energy's had to manage. So what we want to do is really focus on how we can help Duke Energy manage that through a combination of efficiency and load management. And so that's really the focus of our study. You see here, these are the kind of group of devices that we have in our project homes. Not every home is getting everything, but smart thermostats is something we're looking at in every home, how you can manage HVAC. Water heaters, we're looking at shifting water heater management around Duke's time of use periods and critical peak periods as well. We're looking at electric water heating in electric resistance in the existing homes. So far, we don't have any existing homes with heat pump water heaters, but in all of the new homes, both with Meritage and with Mattamy, heat pump water heaters are being installed. So I'll talk about that in a second. We're also looking at home energy monitoring systems, electric storage batteries, and then some other technologies that I've listed there. So I'll jump into water heating. Meritage Homes has two communities that are part of the study. The first one that we got started with the end of last year, Harper Landings outside of Charlotte. These are about 220 Energy Star all-electric homes. They all have the A.O. Smith ProLine heat pump water heater, 50 gallons. And then each of those water heaters is being outfitted with a CTA 2045 control device that's being provided by Shifted Energy. And there's kind of a inset picture right there where you can see what that device looks like. It's that, not the control panel up top, but it's that smaller little box that basically plugs into the CTA port on the water heater. And then the second community is a community in the greater Raleigh market was called the Grove at Wendell. Meritage worked out an arrangement with Invitation Homes to sell the homes in the community to Invitation. Invitation's another single-family rental REIT. And so those homes, even though they're new and they're getting the same specs, they're, again, all-electric Energy Star rated homes, they're all getting the A.O. Smith ProLine Voltex 50-gallon heat pump water heater. I actually am incorrect. They are not getting the CTA 2045. They were as part of the initial build out of the community, but they are not, as they were moved over to be rental properties for the study. But they do have the CTA 2045 ports, and Duke Energy is actually launching a water heater demand response program starting next year. And so these heat pump water heaters could very easily participate in that program with a CTA device installed in them. And then just for everybody's information, so with Mattamy Homes, we have actually 6 communities. The current community, Riverfall, is 60 all-electric high-performance homes, and they're getting the Rheem Professional Prestige, the ProTerra heat pump water heater with the CTA devices installed as well. In the other 5 communities, Mattamy Homes is moving generally towards heat pump water heaters in the North Carolina market, because as they're looking to get to perhaps Energy Star certification, they found that really gives them a good significant boost to get to their target performance levels. Mattamy also is looking to address their operational carbon emissions, and this helps as they can move towards more all-electric homes. So they're using the Rheem hybrid electric heat pump, but it's a builder model. Currently, it does not have CTA 2045 compatibility, but I know that Rheem has a utility version of the same model that you know is currently not available in the North Carolina market, but eventually may become available. So really you know uh, between the Meritage communities, between the Mattamy Homes communities, we're looking at almost 700 to 800 new homes getting heat market. So it's a significant number. And I'll just show you briefly in a second about kind of what the data looks like. But just wanted to touch base so you all understand what we're trying to learn out of this project with water heating. And you see on the bottom there, we welcome any input from anybody here. I know there's some folks from Bradford White. But any input on other research objectives that we should be considering, really interested to hear what you all would have to say. So obviously, one of the big things we want to look at is the impact of these water heating equipment on time of use load shifting and what that does for the load shapes on the electric grid. That's really key in understanding that. Also, from Duke Energy's perspective, we want to evaluate strategies for how you could orchestrate water heating load shifting with HVAC load shifting so that you can get the smoothest load shapes overall for these homes that are in the study. We're also looking at customer satisfaction. So we have a number of surveys that will go out to customers participating in the study so that we can understand some of what we were talking about here, their perception around things like water heating or heat pump water heating, what that means to them living in their home. So we want to understand and as well, like what's the builder feedback or installer feedback on these heat pump water heaters. So far, haven't heard anything negative about that. But certainly we want to work with Brett and others at Meritage and Mattamy to better understand what their experience is like with these units. We also, it's really important as we're looking to understand the opportunity for scaling up the use of these, heat pump water heaters and others. We want to be able to do simulation work that as accurately as possible reflects what we're seeing, in these homes. And so we're going to use the measured data that we're getting to help validate some of our modeling and simulation work. And then with NREL, one of our project partners, they have a tool called Ochre that we're using that essentially can scale whole like regions or metropolitan markets and look at more accurately projecting what this means from a utility standpoint so that Duke Energy can help look at some of their programs and to Brett's point, look at how they can better incentivize the use of the equipment like heat pump water heaters, for example, that bring benefits back to them from a grid management standpoint. We're getting like 1 minute circuit data. We're getting 15-minute AMI, meter data from the utility. So we'll get some really good data in to better assess like what this means. And then we want to look at things like what does it mean from like looking at electric resistance use versus heat pump use on these heat pump water heaters so that we can better see like what we're getting as a baseline and then what opportunities there are for shifting. And then comparison between electric resistance water heaters in the existing homes versus heat pump water heaters. So I know we're near the end, and so I want to show my last slide here. This is just was really thrown together yesterday to show a comparison between our new homes and our existing homes. The existing homes, as I mentioned, all are using electric resistance water heating of different vintages. So we have the data on what those water heaters are, but they're all typical storage tank electric resistance water heaters. And then the new homes, which are using all heat pump water heaters. So the purple line on the bottom shows the average load profile for all of the new homes that Meritage has, specifically using heat pump water heaters. And then the green line above shows the average load profile for these electric resistance water heaters in the existing homes. And then you can see kind of the fuzzy green and purple lines show the actual hourly average load profiles of those water heaters across all homes. And so you can just tell, I mean, this isn't anything we don't already know, but you can see, just general from an average, demand standpoint, the heat pump water heaters are using significantly less energy than the electric resistance water heaters. And then from an hourly standpoint, you can see early in the morning here, 5, 6 a.m., you're getting these spikes, and they're very faint. So sorry about that. We're going to work on these graphs, but really big spikes up to like 1600, watts or 1.6 kilowatts. You're getting these spikes in the electric resistance elements. And then again in the evening, you're getting the same thing. You can see really early, like little after midnight, 1, 2 a.m., you're getting some spikes with the heat pump water heaters, the very faint purple line. I'm not sure exactly what that is, other than to say that we're kind of entering some cold season now in some of these North Carolina areas, and maybe you're getting some heat loss from the tanks, and so they kick on the electric resistance element kind of in the middle of the night. But these are the kinds of things that we're going to be able to look at in great detail as we better understand, as we collect data and then better understand kind of what's going on in these houses from a baseline standpoint. Brett?
Yeah, thanks, Ari. I'm going to have to drop here in just a second, but I think this is indicative of that notion that Ari and I talked about at the beginning and one of the challenges I just think this group should think a lot about is that even if the consumer impact is $1 a day benefit, right? It's $300 to $400 a year of benefit to an individual consumer. While that's not insignificant, if on the utility side of that equation, they're recognizing a similar type of benefit, but aggregated times millions of customers, right? All of a sudden, you have the right incentives to really start to drive adoption of new technologies. And that's where I just think this work is going to be so valuable to the industry and the adoptions of heat pump water heater technology. So I thank you all for the opportunity to talk with you today, and look forward to seeing where this conversation goes. Thanks.
Brett?
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it. Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, thanks. And for folks who have job, thanks, Ari. Thanks everyone for being on. We are time, but that is the key point here. If we can capture that all those savings to utility for not having to build transmissions line and give it as rebates to customers, wow, that'd be great. So Ari, maybe a quick last question. When remind us the timeline of the study?
Well, yeah. So our project runs through basically Q1 of 2027. And we're going to be continuing to recruit and build out homes through next year, starting data collection. We're starting some of our demand response events this winter. And then we'll probably, have a 2 to 2.5 years of data by the end of the project when we kind of finalize everything and report out.
That's going to be amazing. Paul, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, real quick, Ari. So we hear about crawl spaces, half crawl spaces all the time in the Carolinas. Are any of these new home builds, are you dealing with those space types of restrictions and overcoming some of those hurdles at all?
No. So all the new homes that are being built are on slabs.
Okay.
Some of the existing homes are on crawl spaces, and we're noting that when we do our install and retrofits, but not the new homes.
Okay. And then lastly, we had this traumatic event, Hurricane Helene, that came through. What has that, if anything, changed your emphasis, direction, scope for a project like this?
Well, it hasn't necessarily changed the scope for this project, but we've been talking with a lot of folks in North Carolina about what we can do to help, just, pulling together resources to help out where it's needed. And we've been able to do some of that. But also talking with folks there about, in the rebuilding effort, what are some resiliency measures or preparedness measures that can help, these communities be, better, more responsive if and when these,
Right.
these kind of disasters happen again, including things like efficiency, but also things like being ready to plug in, backup batteries or generators, or, switch off to microgrids or things like that.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep talking more about that dynamic as we go forward here too, because there are some organizations and resources that I think would at least want to have conversations about that as well.
Oh, man, that'd be great, Paul.
Yep.
Like we're actively talking to folks. So any other kind of ideas and support connections would be great.
I'll reach out. We'll keep talking. Great.
Thanks,
You.
Paul. All right.
Thanks so
everybody.
much.
I have to jump too.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. Thanks, Paul. Everybody have a happy holiday. We'll see you in the new year. Thank you all
Happy
so much.
holidays,
for a great
everyone. Thank
presentation.
you.
Good job,
Take
guys.
care.
Look
Bye.
forward to seeing more.
Bye-bye.